What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning. So come by and say hello. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the LP rewards that are coming in and actually focus in on specific LPs that I like for myself. Again, none of this is financial advice, but just ones that I am thinking about and considering putting some capital into for the game. Now, what I want to be clear about is that I'm not doing this from, I'm not looking at this from an APR perspective. And I know some people are just like, what's the point of that? But I do believe all of the APRs will kind of normalize out over time. It's just a matter of getting the liquidity in there. So for me, it's long-term minimizing risk of impermanent loss. And if you're not familiar with impermanent loss, it's what happens when coins go in different directions and you end up with more than one than the other of what you started with. Now, sometimes that can be beneficial if that's what you're going for, but most of the time it means ending up with less of a certain coin. And so I highly recommend you do your own research if you're not familiar with that. And if you are, then we can continue with the rest of the video. So let's just go pool by pool here. I'm going to start with the SPS LP rewards first. And so if you take a look at what's going on here, SPS BNB, SPS ETH are the two ones that are not on the Hive engine or Hive blockchain. These are on BSC and Ethereum, respectively. And I would say that I actually like both of these because generally, BNB and Ethereum are two of the top altcoins out there, right? And they're both very strong. And most of the time, the rest of the altcoin market is going to correlate heavily with them. Now, everything correlates heavily with Bitcoin, but on the whole, if BNB starts to go up, and again, I know they're not correlated right now because they have different tokenomics and all that, but generally, as BNB goes up and the market goes up, SPS will or should follow, and as Ethereum does the same on its own blockchain. Now, again, this is not a perfect thing, but what I'm trying to share is that they're both kind of in the same bucket for me. So therefore, their movements are generally the same. When the market goes up, they both go up. When the market goes down, they both go down. SPS and Hive actually are kind of the same as well. Now, let's get into the ones that are on Hive or on the Hive blockchain. So SPS and Hive, I actually like this one quite a bit as well because same concept, right? As Hive goes, SPS may follow and vice versa. Now, the bottom two here, SPS and DEC. This is what I'm talking about in terms of impermanent loss. So when I think about SPS and I think about SPS going up in the long term, especially because it is technically a deflationary token with only 3 billion or less than 3 billion total cap at this point in time, whereas DEC, the team is really trying to get it to stick to its peg of 0.001 or 1,000 DEC per dollar. So over time, I expect SPS to go up, while in the short run, I do expect DEC to get back to its peg, but in the long run, I expect it to stay at its peg because the team is going to do everything in its power to make sure that it does stay there. So when that happens, let's say I put $100 of SPS and $100 of DEC in here. Well, if SPS continues to rise while DEC stays the same, then technically, sure, let's say SPS does a 2x while DEC stays the same. Well, now I have $200 worth of SPS and $100 worth of DEC. And what the liquidity pool will do is make sure that I am always even. So it would actually reduce my SPS holdings, meaning that it gets rid of a couple of tokens of SPS and adds DEC. So it would reduce $50 worth of SPS, whatever tokens that ends up being at the time, and increases my DEC holdings by $50. Does that make sense? And so if I want to hold a lot of SPS and I want to stack it, I don't want to be in a liquidity pool like this, at least in the long run, right? If I'm not paying attention, set it, forget it. I don't want to be in there in the long run because the way I view it is that the higher SPS goes, the less SPS I'll have because it'll be converting that to DEC over time. And if I ever want to pull out, that's where the impermanent loss comes in because I don't need to pull the capital out. But if I do at that point in time, my equivalent tokens, let's say I bought 100 SPS tokens and 100 DEC tokens. I know they're not equal, but for all intents and purposes, over time, if SPS does a 2x, right, then all of a sudden my SPS would become 50 tokens of SPS versus 150 tokens of DEC. Does that make sense? Again, I know rough and I'm kind of rushing through it, but that's kind of why I am a little hesitant there. Now, Voucher and Hive is kind of the same thing. Now, vouchers are like on their own schedule because it's just whatever is determined by the team. And so, from an APR perspective, I think I talked about this yesterday. It's got one of the highest APRs, but that's because there's low liquidity. And I do think over time there will be, that's going to normalize out. People, the whales, especially in this game, and all the people with their spreadsheets are really good at finding the arbitrages. And so, they're going to find them, and they will take them away or at least take advantage of them. So from a pricing and impermanent loss standpoint, the way I view this is, okay, if I want to stack vouchers, it's good maybe for like the short term, but what ends up happening is whenever I need vouchers, right? And that would probably be driven by demand in the overall market. What you're going to end up seeing is vouchers getting spiked by 1, by 2, maybe 3x sometimes, right? Both times that we've seen this happen, you've seen vouchers go up kind of on their own schedule, irrelevant of what's happening with Hive or the rest of the market. So in a way, this is another kind of one that would have probably short-term impermanent loss, but it's just like that impermanent loss is going to happen whenever I want to go in and maybe sell or redeem my vouchers. Do you get what I'm saying? So I like this pool a lot, and I'm glad they're trying to build liquidity out for this. But I do worry because there is low liquidity now, that whenever I want to redeem my vouchers, whether to flip them or whether to redeem them, I will end up having less vouchers because vouchers tend to go up on their own while Hive will stay the same. So that's it for SPS and LP reports. Hopefully that makes sense, and we'll make DEC. If you understand that, then DEC should be even easier, right? Because when it comes to DEC, you have on PancakeSwap, on Binance Smart Chain, this is DEC BUSD, and on Ethereum you have DEC DAI. And if you're not familiar with DAI or BUSD, these are both stable coins, and they're supposed to be pegged to $1. And for the most part, they've performed relatively well despite the the bear market. Nothing's happened like Luna to them. Although DAI is another algorithmically generated stablecoin, so make sure you do your research on that. But I actually like these top two, mainly because of the fact that if DEC is supposed to be a stable coin, then I don't mind pairing it with BUSD because I always expect them to be the same. Do you get what I'm saying? If I put in $100 of both, then generally BUSD will stay around 100, and DEC, unless there's some crazy thing that happens in the game, will stay around that level. It might go up a little bit, it might go down a little bit, but for the most part, they stay relatively stable. Now, DEC Hive, on the other hand, as well as SPS and DEC, I'm bullish on Hive because again, it seems like a pretty cool blockchain. I don't know much about Hive, but I do like it from my experience so far. And then I've already talked about SPS DEC from the previous one. So, again, you can take a risk and understand, if you understand what the risks of impermanent loss are, then it could be, beneficial for you because the rewards might be worth it, especially since you can double dip in the DEC SPS pool or SPS DEC pool. You get both the SPS LP rewards as well as the DEC LP rewards. So, again, it just comes down to what your risk tolerance is and what your timeline is. Again, none of this financial advice. Make sure you do your own research, but I'm just trying to explain why I like some better than others if I'm planning to just put it in and let it be there and let it sit there for the long term. And then I guess just going back to DEC Hive, I do view that somewhat similar to SPS because Hive may follow the market and will go up and down with the general trend of the market. And that could be, again, this could be advantageous because let's say I want to have more Hive, but I'm kind of bearish on the market and I think it's going to be a bear market. Well, here's what we do. If I want to take advantage of impermanent loss, then I put in, $100 of DEC, $100 of Hive, and I expect DEC to stay stable, but I expect Hive to go down. So when Hive goes down, what ends up happening? Well, it sells some of the DEC, or I shouldn't say sells because it's just reallocating some of the DEC and puts it into Hive. So if I put 100 DEC tokens and 100 Hive tokens, I know they're not equal in real life, but whatever the equivalent is, when that happens, I would end up with more Hive tokens because Hive is at a lower price than I submitted the liquidity. And if I pull it out at that point, because then all of a sudden I become bullish on Hive, I would have more Hive tokens than I started with, even though the value of those Hive tokens would be less. Does that make sense? Okay, I don't like trading the market though. For me, it's hard to time the market. Sure, there's certain things you can do, and I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying that I don't like to, even though I pay attention every single day. For me, I just like the passive stuff. I just like to set and forget, and I like to focus on the games and focus on everything else that's happening within the economy. So for me, I'm not looking to trade, and I don't really want to be messing around with putting liquidity in and pulling stuff out. So the ones that I like are the ones that are either stables, so like the DEC DAI, BUSD and DAI ones here, and the ones that generally tend to trend with one another. So hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any questions, though, I'm happy to follow up. But otherwise, that's all I got for you in this video. Let me know your thoughts below, which ones you're eyeing, which ones you think would be good, which ones may be too much for your risk tolerance, all that fun stuff, and we'll continue the conversation there. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will see you around the game. Take care.